Hello, after 3 months away, Super Rugby is back as the Chiefs destroy the Warriors and the Sharks smash the Bears. Oh wait, hang on. Sorry, it's still the Premiership, but defence is optional and offloads are compulsory. Well, in that case, welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. It's just Harry and I this week. Obviously, we've left it a day than usual because of the bank holiday games. How you getting on, Harry? You all right?
Good, thanks. Yeah, no, enjoying it. Nice to have some games on a Monday afternoon. It's a bit of a change of pace, but yeah, good to enjoy the bank holiday.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched so much rugby. It's been my Skybox has been working overtime on the amount of stuff we've been able to get out over the last few days. It's been quite nice. Right, let's get straight into it. Super 12.
Yeah,
we were discussing sort of off air about this. And sort of talk on this. These games are getting, some of them anyway, are quite pointless, really, aren't they? We've had, the game we've just watched, which is the Bath Wasps game, was absolutely brilliant. And we'll get into that last, but absolutely fantastic. And you can kind of argue Northampton Quins was competitive, but that was still a relatively good winning margin for Quins. But the rest of them were just one-sided, completely mismatched. Like, could this thing have just been settled and gone, we're only going to have the top six playoff against each other? We could have done the top four from where it was or move it on. We've still got a few games left. I just don't see the point.
it is a bit unfortunate, really, because, well, I think in terms of the rest of the season, they're going to keep going. And I think this will really be this and maybe the other midweek round will be the only ones which are really a bit dodgy in terms of the competitive balance of the specific game. But in the end, it's not completely beyond the realms of possibility that Sale, take the first game, for example, Sale Bristol, even if Bristol played their full strength team, it's not impossible that it ends up with Sale taking 5 league points and Bristol getting none. That was like Sale at home, defensively good. Bristol, they're still gelling. Some of their best players have only arrived 6 weeks ago. It's perfectly plausible that Sale would roll over them. So the competitive balance of the league isn't destroyed yet because this is only one round of fixtures. I think if this happens again, if more or less every round from now until the end, which is actually not that far away, we've only got, I think it's 4 rounds left after this. This is round 17.
5?
Yeah. So we have 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So yeah, 5 rounds left. If all of those rounds have at least 2 fixtures, which are 40 points to 7, 59, 7, 40 points to 12, if that becomes quite common, then you can see people not bothering to turn up and watch a game, because even the Northampton Harlequins match, that wasn't really a full strength Northampton team, and that was as good as Quins could be, that squad that they put out. So if you looked at those team sheets before the match and thought, well, that's Harlequins' game, I'm not going to watch that. I'm going to watch the Tour de France. I'm going to watch the cricket, which is on BBC for the first time in a while, on Sunday at the exact same time as that match. While there's no football, this could have been a really great time, and it's not. It still is a really great time to get people watching rugby when there's no, or certainly less, competition for viewers in terms of sports fans. I know I'm much more happy to watch some of these slightly worse matches when there are no good football games on, but this still has to be a good product. It's not just a match going on. It still has to be worth watching, or people will just go and do something else. So
it's difficult, isn't it, really? Because there's games that are completely one-sided, and we'll go into the games in a minute, but just sort of stay on this point. Like, to give the perfect example, like Irish Saracens, right? You look at the team, like, the only reason why I watched that game was because I'm an Irish fan. I'm really passionate about it, and I wanted to see what the youngsters good. I woke up this morning and was like, Irish, keep it. I'll be happy if Irish keep it under 50. Like, and they did.
Yeah.
I'm buzzing. We scored 2 tries against literally a team that's got X amount of internationals, British and Irish Lions, even a World Cup winner, with the average age of our squad was 24. Great result, but we'll get into that later on. But I was thinking in the midweek, because obviously we didn't do a midweek podcast, and we don't need to maybe go over those games. They might naturally come out as we go in. But I was kind of thinking to myself, like, would I want midweek rugby with, if I've got midweek football? Like, I'm not as into the football as you are, but I don't think it works. I don't think this is a one-off. I think because of they're trying to finish the season. I don't think this should be a normal thing, because you're not going to have the quality. Like, just look at Exeter Bristol. Like, Exeter are so good at the moment. Their second team is ridiculous. Like, Phil Dolman at 34, 35, rocking up. Like, what a game he had. Just to touch on that. But yeah, just on that sort of point, then let's get into Sale Bristol then. As I say, like 40 points to 7. Bristol clearly had their second team out. Sale went full noise. Some really good standout performances. Faf de Klerk was absolutely fantastic. The Jean-Luc and Daniel Lepre are absolute.
Yeah, they don't need a lot of space and a lot of time on the ball to really do a lot of damage. They have fit into the Premiership as well as any forward signings in the last few years. They've been excellent.
How far do you reckon they're off from getting in the South Africa team for the Lions?
It's a
Not
good question.
Both of them. I don't think Jean-Luc would get in the second row, obviously, but Dan, replacement?
Probably not. But remember, Jean-Luc was the number 8, and Dan was coming off the bench for the Sharks before they moved. And Jean-Luc, before he put on a bit of weight to play second row, he's the same player as Dan. Obviously slightly heavier now, but there was a flip of a coin between the two of them in terms of what you want at 8. And actually, for South Africa, replacing Dwayne Vermeulen, it might be that you want Jean-Luc, who's a bit heavier now. I think he's slightly taller. I think he's an inch or 2 taller. Whereas Dan is obviously much, much more of a loose weapon, very fast, offloads.
Ridiculous.
And obviously they're both very powerful. But yeah, I'm just trying to work out who the other 8 options are. They've got Notchi, who's good but a bit lightweight. They've got the really young guys. Is it Boutulese?
I'm not too familiar with their back row options. They've obviously, there's Kobash Vice. I don't know where Kobash Vice was in relation, or is it Kobash Vice or whoever Leicester have signed?
So the guy that Twins have signed.
Oh, Wilco Low.
Yeah, more of a 6, I think. But yeah, I think it wouldn't surprise me to see one of them called up, or potentially even both of them, to give them a go, because the reason that they brought Vermeulen back was that 8 jersey was a bit questionable as to who was coming after him once he'd gone to France. There wasn't an obvious star. I think even Khaleesi played a couple of games, which didn't work as well as they hoped. So yeah, with Vermeulen retired, or is he retired? Either way, if he's not,
he's getting on, isn't he?
Yeah, they'll be looking to put somebody else in that jersey and get them ready, because the World Cup cycle starts again. So
I would really think that they would look. Razzie Erasmus would definitely look at those two, because I mean they love it. They also quite like a fight. They do like having it. Like any moment, like I think it's quite a good characteristic to have if your mates on the floor, like in a social. But they just appear out of nowhere. They could be on the other side of the pitch for all they know. They love a little scrap. But yeah,
never far from the action.
They terrify me from sitting on my sofa. Like honestly, absolutely terrified. Quick things just for me on that game, and probably move it on. Obviously, Sale did look very good. Faf's back to his best. Puts his name up again in the talk for best 9 in the world shirt. But I did like Steve Diamond's when they cut to him and they said the only people that can jackal are the two Currys and Aka van der Merwe. I thought that was fair play. I was like, I like that.
Yeah, and I think it's well, especially these they're not new laws, the new stricter interpretation of the previous laws. Let's say they do mean that you have to be very technically accurate on a jackal, and you've got to be really good coming through the gate. You've got to be very controlled in terms of your hand placement, and if you've got players who aren't so good at that still trying to do it, that's where those really high penalty counts come from. So especially when you've got those three, obviously Tom and Ben Curry are amongst the best in England at an international level, never mind club level. But Aka van der Merwe is also excellent. Nice short guy, stocky,
Power.
not being moved off the ball, and pretty good reach, actually. He's got reasonably long arms for such a short guy. So, yeah, you might as well just limit it to those three. Everyone else does the tackling, and then you've got the designated one man does the tackle. I think there was one moment where I think it was Sam James got a really nice ankle tackle, sort of grabbing the guy's ankles, comes to ground. Curry is there immediately.
Yeah.
So Curry's already in that mindset of thinking, well, I might need to assist with the tackle here, but if Sam hasn't got him, then the other defender next to Curry was going to go for the tackle. Curry was already lining himself up to go for the jackal, and that makes it so much easier if you're that anticipation. If it's not even anticipation, if it's just planning, it's so much easier to get those turnovers.
And because it also means from a defensive point of view, and it wasn't just Sale that were doing this, Saracens did it today as well. I noticed just getting ball, like if the ruck's not there, leave it alone, get on your feet. There were so many times that Sale had so many people on their feet that Bristol really couldn't break down them and actually get in and play in the right areas. I think, yeah, but again, the essence of this game was that Sale are at completely full strength. I thought AJ McGinty, for me, was really good at 10, really puts them in the right areas. They've got some good players coming through. Bristol needed to rotate, and it was strange that they're congested, aren't they? I guess they had the midweek game of Exeter where they decided to put a full team out and it backfired because Exeter would, maybe in hindsight with Pat Lamb, does he flip it and go, actually, in the midweek, I probably could have gone second team, and then again beaten Sale. They're my actual rivals from the second place. Exeter are gone. Like, let's put it that way. Exeter are top, leave them alone, wait for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Maybe he might reflect back on that and go, could we rotate it round? I don't know. But
yeah, I think it was always going to be very difficult, and the strategy for what to do in terms of when to play your stronger squads, how to distribute your stronger players, is a thing that all of these coaches would have been struggling with. Now, some squads have a bigger difference between their first string and their second string, and they have more resilient. Some have more resilient first stringers. Some have identical twins or younger brothers of some of their star players. So Sale and Wasps can rotate the Currys and the Willis brothers and things like that. Obviously, they've not actually chosen to. They end up just playing both of them in each game. That's just how it goes sometimes. It seems like Northampton, who we'll come to later, they're going for more of a play a 60% strength team every game and hope to catch somebody on an off day, which sort of works. Bristol obviously went for a play the strongest team, give them and just effectively have the strongest possible team doing the regular match at the weekend, weekdays off, match at the weekend, weekdays off, and then use your depth options to play these midweek games, and sort of just understand that if you're going to lose some games in this period, why play any good players in a game that you've lost. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, good to get game time for Max Malins. Piers O'Connor was their starting 13 before. No, Piers O'Connor's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
He was starting 13 before Andrada.
Yeah.
Ben Earl is a
Ben Earl was good.
perfectly good 8 at Premiership level.
Yes. It was good for Harry Randall to have a better second half as well, actually, because he was he didn't have a great game against Exeter, and then obviously Lamb hoiked him off before half time. That's never great. But he's fair play to him. He's given him confidence. He's gone back out there and he's had a better game. But yeah, Sailor way we kind of over maybe jumped the gun and overwrote off Sale maybe when they didn't get early wins, but they're well up there, aren't they? They're second, are they now, or just behind Bristol?
I haven't looked at the table. I'll put it up now. But yeah, they're
going to be in the mix. They really are.
They've really done very well out of this little rotation period. When I am fully sure that Steve Diamond will say to anybody who asks that they expect to win every single one of these games, and the squad that he selects is the best squad available, and he backs that squad to beat anybody they come up against. But that's not really the case, is it? But for them to have come out of these games with 5 points in each game is really, really helpful, because nobody else did apart from Exeter. No. And it's put a big, having been sort of quite tight between Sale and Northampton, between 2nd and 6th, it's now quite safe that, well, Sale now they're 10 points ahead of Northampton, they're still 3 points ahead of Wasps, so they're a bit close in the top 4, but
it's probably between, realistically, it's Bath,
right now.
Bristol, Sale, potentially. I mean, Quins are mathematically in there, but they've still got a bit of work to do, haven't they?
It's getting a bit difficult for Quins now, and they might actually choose to come 7th. Yeah. They might prefer to come 7th now and not end up in the Champions Cup next season. Let Northampton and Bath take those batterings from Toulouse and Leinster.
Yeah. And then pick them up.
Have some comfortable rest weeks, sort of, in the Challenge Cup, and really push for top 4 in the Premiership next season, because Quins are looking really good.
Yeah, let's do Quins, actually. Quins 30.17, scored some nice tries. I quite like Chris Ashton, fair play, 88 tries. I did like that he still did a ash splash with no fans. It was quite funny. Classic. Rob Shaw going over in the corner was quite nice to see that. Lovely hands down the line. Don Brandt's putting himself about again for that 8 shirt. I mean, it's so competitive because Sam Simmons got a hat-trick again, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Obviously, Billy was very good again against Irish today. I'd like to think that Eddie Jones might pull the trigger on Don Brandt and give him a go in this 8 Nations thing, maybe, because he can do things that are just a little bit different of offloading, and his passing is ridiculous. He's got for me the best hands out of the 3 of them, out of Billy, Sam, and himself. That pass to set up, I think it was Earl's try, where he's passed like 30 meters, ridiculous.
Yeah,
at full speed, ridiculous.
My question for Don Brandt is, why are you picking Don Brandt over Nathan Hughes? Because Hughes in attack, in that offloading, really good hands, he's as good, maybe slightly less good, but he's much bigger than Don Brandt at the moment.
But he's not as quick.
And he plays for a better team. He's not quite as quick, but Billy Vunipola's not very quick, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, and Sam Simmons is absolutely rapid.
Yeah, and not being picked.
Isn't it? I think line out as well. We get a bit more of an option at line out.
Quite possibly. If Billy wasn't there, if Billy was for some reason unavailable, I think it would be really interesting. It'd be really interesting to see what Jones does. I mean, he might well just go with Mark Wilson again. but that would be a bit boring.
Oh yeah, I don't want that.
Uh,
Or keep or somehow do his like
Curry again.
somehow put a combination of like Curry, Willis, and Underhill together, which would be ridiculous. But I wouldn't. To be
Yes,
honest, I wouldn't put it past him.
that would be fine. Jack Willis is
And
good,
like
mate.
Ludlam on the bench, something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, tasty, tasty.
Um,
Um,
just on
but yeah,
Quins, they got battered by Worcester in the week. Second team versus Worcester's best team, and then they've all gone off again. Um, they sort of have a weird. You can kind of see what. Oh God, what's his name? Who's their coach? He's gone.
Gustard.
Gustard. You're trying to see what he's trying to do there with the attacking play, but again, they just have those off days where they are brilliant. I mean, you look at the scoreline; they've scored some great tries. Mike Brown rolled back the ears with a lovely break. I think that was to set up the Earl try. That was absolutely brilliant. Like what he used to do for England back in the day. Fantastic. Yeah, it's just weird to think where really Quins are. I mean, they kind of are where they are, though, aren't they? They're like the solid seventh team, that they're better than the rest below them, but they're not. They haven't got maybe the ability to compete with the top five, as I'd say, but Bath,
Yeah,
Wasp, etc.
I think they're right where they should be.
Hmm.
They're not really doing anything too weird. They're 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 where you would expect for a team that their three leaders on the pitch, their three most decorated international players, their three, let's say maybe four if you include Ashton in that group,
Hmm.
but their most recognisable players are probably past where you'd like them to be in terms of the peak of their career. They're very much not. They're not playing for England anymore. Obviously, Kerr was in the most recent squads, but Ashton, Brown, and Marler maybe, but Rob Shaw, they will not play for England again.
No.
So they're at the point where, in a game where excellent decision making and making the most of the opportunities that you get is the thing that makes the difference, they can still do that, but they won't keep pace with some of these really elite teams. Like they were playing, so for example, this weekend, playing a quite rotated but not drastically rotated Northampton team.
Yeah.
You'd like to have seen them score more than 4 tries and be a little bit less vulnerable in defence. So for Northampton's first try, where Marchant just loses Proctor, and Proctor's line is very good.
That's a great line, isn't it?
Lovely hands, Grayson, Hutchinson, Proctor,
Yeah.
but like it's quite obvious what's going to happen there, and you need to trust your fullback and outside winger that they'll catch anything that goes out the back out of Hutchinson. So because nobody else is going to tackle Proctor if he's running through there, but somebody should be able to cover around to catch whoever's coming around the back. But they're nearly there. They've got some good players. It's going to be very important to sort of see who they replace each of these guys with. Obviously, Tyrone Green is likely to come in for Brown. Ashton's
coming in.
Pardon?
They've got you've got those three South African boys coming in. You've got obviously
Yep.
Usatazen and Wilco Lowe to replace Sinclair. So to be honest, Quins are playing well despite them not having their big players in there. Like again, there's a few clubs that have got guys that they've signed that haven't actually come in yet, and if they're playing well and they're winning, then that's great. But you kind of worry for a team like Saints that haven't. Obviously, Nicky Ezekwe's arrived and he's gone there, but they haven't done anything amazing in the market. But have they argued they need to? I don't know. But yeah, they're not. They're probably realistically the team in the Premiership that is probably being the most disappointing, because everyone sort of in the bottom half is definitely on a transition, aren't they? Like Irish are going through to the season, Worcester are getting through to next season, Saracens are obviously relegated, Leicester are going youth and trying to upskill those players. Gloucester have got a new coach, so those guys are on their own path. Quins have sort of are because they're a little bit better than them, are up there, and then you've got the top 5 pushing up. But Northampton, who were in the top 4, have really started to slip now, where they don't look like a side that's got any confidence, despite having Proctor, who's class, Hutchinson, Bigger, Naravoro. It's a bit. Yeah.
When they're playing their full strength team, they are still really good. I do think Northampton's full strength team would have won that match. Playing Naravoro from the start. Grayson did have a really good game, but
I love Grayson. I think Grayson's fantastic.
Bigger is a slightly different level. Harrison from the start would have been helpful. The only area where Northampton are sort of obviously weak, both starting and depth, is their front row. And that's so obviously Franks should be in there, and Mikey Hayward is pretty good. He's certainly Premiership, not causing you any problems tier. He's not something that absolutely needs replacing, but Aaron Painter's still a bit young for all the talent that he does have. Autorax had a bit of a weird career. I think this is Hobbs Aboyemi's first proper season. And then...
Well, he's Hobbs Aboyemi's played in the Premiership with Irish, sort of rotated.
Okay.
They rotated hit a lot with Alan Dell and... God, I can't remember his name, and Harry Elwington there. Again, I said to him when Northampton signed him, like, again, personally for me, he's a really good championship level prop. Like, that's where he really stood out, where in the championship, but he never did anything for us. Yes, when Irish went over there and he put him on toast, but then you've got to think who else the guys putting him behind him. And I think that's one thing that I've learned today is, yes, you can have the best front row in the world, but you've got to have if you've got 2 massive second rows up your ass, you are going to be very, very good. Yeah, I'm just looking there. Hobbs Remy, Mike Hayward, Aaron Painter started. Reece Marshall, who's a good up and coming look. And yeah, Alterac been around. Paul Hill again, England international. Paul Hill. Yeah,
but not only for his scrummaging, Paul Hill. These days, to be a genuinely competitive pack, you need at least one of those front row that are on the pitch at any one time to be a genuinely dangerous ball carrier. And Painter is approaching that.
Yeah.
He's certainly very big, and when he gets a head of steam, he's hard to stop, but he's not got very exciting hands. He's not going to get any turnovers. None of them really are going to be fighting for turnovers.
They're stock props.
Exactly. Whereas almost every other team in that top 6, Exeter certainly do, Sale obviously with Van der Merwe, Bristol have, every single one of Bristol's props and hookers are in some way an X Factor player, which is one of the reasons why they're so good. Wasps, slightly less so, but their hooker group is very, very good, while their props are a bit more ordinary.
I like Allo. I think Allo was really good today.
His hands are not where you'd want them to be.
No.
He had one really bad. It was very obvious that he was going to be getting the ball and he just didn't catch it. Bath's props are good international levels hookers as well.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to get to the point where lower down in the table where these teams don't have great props and don't have the attacking threat out of there. So I think that's probably one of the differences between Northampton staying in the top 4 and moving out. But just one of those things. I don't know if you noticed this at the time. Just want to sort of to round up this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Decision making that might have been different if Bigger were on the field. Northampton had a scrum about 5 or 10 meters out from the Quins line. Quins, to deal with that, put Marcus Smith to blindside, where there was no Northampton attacking player, and then put the 7 Will Evans into the 10 channel, and Northampton just didn't know what to do because they realised that Naravoro carry would be dealt with quite quickly, and sort of played a few phases and then eventually were turned over. Whereas a team with slightly sharper decision making, a bit more, because it's very clear to see that Chris Boyd does try to coach them to make their own decisions, but at the same time has a very good plan that they follow, and it's one of the reasons why they're so good, that they follow a very good plan.
Yeah, the structure, don't they? Yeah.
But Quinn's presented them with this weird defence. Northampton didn't know what to do, but really the thing to do was 8-9, attack that blind side,
Yeah,
and see what change you can get out of it. Because Marcus Smith he's okay as a defender, but he's not a normal 6.
no, he's not. No, he's not.
Um,
Not up again. If you got a back, especially with any decent back row, sizable lad, bless him. Like as I said, Marcus Smith's a fantastic player, but he's still young. He's not got the size.
I mean, and Sean Aidenorf, who I think was on the pitch at that time,
Yeah, he's a big
guy,
yeah,
and has been playing quite well for them. Had reasonably good stats out of that game. 42 carry meters is quite a good change. So, yeah, I think Northampton are still in progress, and I don't think anybody there would be embarrassed to admit that.
No.
But plenty of good signs. Certainly, when Bigger inevitably ends up leaving, knowing that they've got James Grayson there, who's developing into a really good 10, is going to be good for them.
Yeah, they've got, as I said, they've got some fantastic players. They're just in a bit of a slump at the moment, and they'll probably get out of it. I'm going to rattle through the Chiefs Worcester game because that game angered me, to be honest. 59-7, Exeter just clinical. Worcester putting a second team out. I don't really know what to say about Worcester because they had a second team against Exeter's first team. So you can't say they weren't great. I mean, what I think one say is Worcester had no defence in the sense that they did not try to get off the line. So Chiefs had it easy when they just basically went around the corner, broke the line quite well. That was probably one thing. Worcester ended it better. They ended the game 15 minutes. They shut them down and then obviously got their try at the end. But Simmons, credit to him, got a hat-trick. Well done. Johnny Hill, congratulations to him. He's the first second row since 2000 to get a second row first half hat-trick, which is fantastic. Jack Knowles got an unbelievable try in the corner. He's just world class. But yeah, Vermeulen's good. Again, great hands. I don't know if you've seen the game. I'm quite happy to move on. Extra class. They're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to stay first. Whether they win over, they're in the driver's seat to win the Premiership. If they don't win it this year, they've chucked it away because they're by far the best team in the league. Move on.
I watched the highlights and it just looked like an Exeter season highlights package. They just scored. They scored your classic Exeter tries.
Yeah,
scored a lot of them in one game.
Yeah,
and shouldn't really be very surprised with that. I think obviously this isn't a very representative game, but it's sort of the icing on the cake of what is becoming a very impressive CV for Johnny Hill. So depending on what Eddie decides to do in terms of the second row of stocks, I know he's quite attached to Charlie Ewells as the next man up in that group. But obviously Launchbury, Laws, and Cruz won't be selected again. Launchbury and Laws are probably still selecting.
Launchbury and Atoje is Atoje.
Oh.
We'll come to Atoje later, but yeah.
Yeah, so Atoje and Ezekiel aren't going anywhere. And then there's a bit of moving around to do, and depending on how many of these individuals you want in the squad, if some of them are going to play 6. But Johnny Hill must be close. And I'm not really sure why obviously Ewells is a very good player, Bath captain, etc. But Johnny Hill has been excellent for Exeter for a very long time. So he can't be too far off.
You can't rule out a guy that's just scored a hat-trick. Like, yes, two of his tries were crash overs, fine, but you've got to finish it. And then the one down the thing, he finds himself on the wing and he powers through. So he's got some good speed. He's got a lot bigger than he used to be when he first burst. Obviously. But again, that's probably age as well, as he's got older. With like the likes of Alex Moon's obviously being called up there. Johnny Hill's better than him. I think he's probably better than potentially Ezekwe, because Ezekwe's been hampered by playing 6 and second row. But Johnny Hill is not a 6. Like, he's not one of those like hybrid like Courtney Laws. Don't you dare try and play him 6. What's the point? You
don't need
play him as a second row, or you don't play him at all. But he should be in the conversation, though.
Yeah, certainly. Moving on to the Gloucester Leicester. That was a weird game. I gave up, and then all of a sudden, it got interesting.
I don't understand. Gloucester just tore them apart for half an hour. Thorley I flipping love Ollie Thorley. I think Ollie Thorley's amazing. Obviously, maybe 3 of his tries, he admitted himself they were given to him, but you've still got to finish them again. But when he does, poor old Henry, where Henry will look back on that and think, didn't really defend that well, where he sort of planted his feet and Thorley just ran round him in the end. But it was weird. Like, Cipriani was just running the boss in the show. Gloucester were just going through the phases, looking like it was going to be 50 points with nothing else. Leicester had a weird tactic of kicking the ball to the back 3 of Gloucester and not having a chase. But you've got a back 3 of Woodward, Thorley and May, who are unbelievable under the high ball. I was like, what are you doing for the first half an hour? Obviously, Fordy comes on, Youngs comes on, and flipping heck, Jordan Taofua is unbelievable. Jesus.
Yeah.
Flipping heck. What impact.
He's quite special.
He just comes on and is like, right, lads, we're doing this. And then those 3 got them back in the game. But I was very critical of that Leicester against Bath, where they just shoved out all the youngsters. And I do understand, looking back on it, what they're trying to do. But the 3 things they should have done was just start those 3. If started them, Leicester probably would have won that game.
Well, what are Leicester's fixtures coming up? What are they saving themselves for?
I don't know.
Let's have a look.
Because
Zach Henry is, I mean, he's obviously in an attacking sense,
he's good.
Perfectly good enough.
Defensively, very good though.
But as you would expect, having come from Pro D2, which is no offense to him, and nobody's expecting he's going to come in here and be Sam Underhill, having played 15 and 10 for the Pro D2 team. Not what you're expecting him to do. If you put Danny Cipriani in the same position, I'm sure he wouldn't have done very well either. So sort of on an individual level, none of these Leicester players are condemned by this experience or what they've got coming up. But it's just difficult to work out what they're planning for and what the overall vision is. So, but
it is weird though, isn't it? Like, they had Nadolo played against Irish, and I understand, like, he's not fit. Like, he's clearly not fit. He had great stats against Irish. Fair play to him. Good debut. But he's clearly not fit. I mean, he's overweight. Like, there's Naravoro, who's just a big boy, and he's just big, but he's muscle. Naholo is. We know how big Naholo is, but Naholo just doesn't look fit. He does not look fit. He looks overweight.
But he is 5 years older than Naravoro.
Yeah, fair play.
Which is hot, and you see what Leicester are trying to do with selecting him. I'm not sure what the deal with Murivalo is at the the
I'm not sure. He's there, but again, it's whether they're just when they're waiting for him. But again, just a couple. It's kind of Leicester handicapping themselves for, like, if you've got Ben Youngs and George Ford in the 23 and Taofua in the 23. Yeah, it's good to bring them on, because when it went up the creek at the half an hour mark and they're facing down the barrel of an absolute destroying hammer in, and in the end 46-30 doesn't actually look too bad when they really were close about getting in the game. But I think if they started those 3, I think, yes, you want to give Chris Henry a run at 10, and I can understand that, but
also on some level, why not, when you're playing Irish, why not go all out and be like, play as well as you possibly can, put in the best performance you possibly can? If you're going to chuck the game against Bath, quote unquote chuck, but play a significantly.
We can say that they chucked it.
Well,
That's
either
what they
way.
did. That's what they did, though. Same with Irish. Chuck the Saracens game today. But we'll talk
No,
about that.
no professional team is chucking a game.
No, no.
They turned up and they tried hard.
Yes.
But so the games they should have targeted are Irish, and then they've actually got Sale on Saturday, and you'd hope. So the problem they've got now is that that's a week after Sale's last game, and there's no reason why Sale can't just play their strongest team on Saturday. So Leicester's first string against Sale's second team could have been a tight game, but now they're in the position where their opposition is just going to play their strongest team again, and there's not really a lot they can do. But baby steps. Obviously, it's good to see that when they have got their best players on the pitch, they are still scoring points and defending slightly better.
But that sort of leads on to the point of, how much was it Leicester get? Yes, George Ford and Ben Youngs and Taufua is clear impact, not disputing that. But Gloucester's discipline was shocking. Just, they were cruising, and then they just took their foot off, and it was just penalty after penalty after penalty. Mistake. Leicester take their opportunity from the line-outs, and admittedly, they then come back in and then suddenly realise, actually, we probably should start playing rugby again, and they go and secure it. But, yeah, great first 30 minutes from Gloucester. They look brilliant. On attack, when they get the ball, when Cipriani's on the front foot, there's no one better for me. He just takes the ball to the line. He's got great hands. Chris Harris got another good try. Pelledri boshes himself down the wing. Thorley's class. Johnny May, you don't know what he's doing, but it's incredible because he's like an enigma. It's great to see him back there. They are certainly, I wouldn't say Gloucester are going to be right, but they're straight back in the top 6 again, because I don't think they're there that yet. But because they've just got to they've got to have an 80-minute performance. They had a 40-minute performance of when they were really, really on it, took the foot off the gas. Leicester come back at them, because realistically, Gloucester were playing pretty much their strongest team there.
Yeah.
But
I think that's obviously they'll be disappointed at that, but that does happen sometimes. And they didn't not win; they didn't not get the bonus point. So if anything, it's a good coaching moment for Skivington to say, "Yeah, well done, you played well, but this is what we need to work on," which is actually sometimes what a coach would prefer. It must be quite difficult going into a coaching week with nothing obvious, for the players for themselves to know, actually, we could have done this, and this better. The players must be much more receptive to the coach telling them what they need to do when the players themselves are already aware that the performance wasn't perhaps ideal, even if they did get the 5 points. So
it's going to be interesting as well, and this will link on to the next game, is they're playing Irish next Saturday in a game where it'll be decent. Irish beat them earlier on in the year with the Hassel-Collins four tries. Thorley's got 4 tries this weekend. So the Irish are no doubtably going to come back with their more notable players, because they had a reduced weak team out. But just on Irish, I've been quite maybe a bit overcritical on Irish, only because I really care about the team and I want the team that I support to do well. But again, as I said, I woke up this morning and I was a bit not nervous, because I was I never thought Irish were going to beat Saracens today. I never ever thought that, because just looking at the front 8 they've got a World Cup winner, they've got British and Irish Lions, they've got England internationals. And Irish, they had a lot of 22-year-olds under 22s, but they were just on it. They gave it an absolute game. The fans on social media have been quite critical of Irish. I thought for the first, they put Saracens under pressure. Saracens weren't, yes, we lost 40 points to 12. That's not a great result. But you look at the Saracens' tries, they've scored them off driving mauls, where they're going to score off driving mauls when they've got bloody Maro Itoje in there, when they've got a bigger pack. But Isaac Curtis-Harris was incredible. He just bullied Billy Vunipola. Billy Vunipola had a great game. He did have a really good game, but Harris just chopped him at every opportunity. He wasn't getting offloads away. Crevy got a try on his debut, and he's going to be. We talked about what's the point of getting a 35-year-old? That's the reason you get a 35-year-old in. For the line out was brilliant. He scores a try. He gets a couple of key turnovers. Yes, he gave away 2 stupid penalties, which gave Saracens an opportunity to score. But yeah, I mean, Wilton Godric-Clark, Lovejoy Chamatema, again, what we call stock props, but they held their own against Barrington and Cock that have got the firepower of Hunter Hill, a Toje behind them. I think, yes, Irish in attack, they just didn't have anything because you're playing against Brad Barrett and Elliot Daly, who are international calibre, that you're going to struggle to get over the game line. Maybe I could have seen a bit more from Rona. But Saracens weren't at their best. I think Mark McCall might have them. That was the opportunity for Saracens to put full pedal to the metal, score some outlandish tries out wide, but they resulted to drive over mauls, Billy Vanapolis tap and go and crash over, Barrington's crash over around the ruck, and of course they're going to beat Irish, because Irish are playing a team of academy lads, but the academy lads stood up. Just really, really exciting, and it was nice to see Dan Norton get on the pitch. But what?
Yeah, so that was that. How did he do?
He had 2 touches, got about 10 metres and got tackled, but he was still there. The only thing that I do want to say before I move on to this, can BT Sport please stop feeling sorry for Saracens or being impressed at their winning games? It's doing my absolute nutting. Saracens have got a World Cup winner. They started a World Cup winner today. They've got the best second row in the world in Maratoji. Maratoji was unbelievable. With playing against Bundonna, who is the sort of upcoming 6, who's they've kind of been shoving to get in the second row because we're lacking in there. Chungamunga, who's played for the Rams actually in National 1, really young lad, but he was like rabbit in a headlight. He still had a good game for his level, but Atoje was just so good. But please, can you stop just stop feeling sorry for Saracens? Just stop.
Yes, it is very strange.
Go away. Quite frankly, they're like, oh, they've done so well of getting these points back. Yeah, because they've got fucking Elliot Daly at 13. They've got Lewington, Maitland. They've got British and Irish Lions up against Jamie George. Like, you name them. Like, stop feeling sorry for them. They're going to win the championship within the first 5 games. They're going to be back. They've got the second best squad in the Premiership. Stop feeling sorry for them. Stop.
Yeah.
It's
no, completely agree. I suspect this might be their last full showing in the Premiership
before
this season, because
before
with the Champions Cup, the Champions Cup starting up now, so they'll want to phase out these Premiership starts for some of these guys in order to really focus on the Champions Cup. But yeah, I don't think it can be said enough how Saracens are not the victims in this. They are perhaps unfortunate that they're the ones that were highlighted and had all of the work done investigating them, but there's no question that what they were doing was breaking the rules, and as much as they may have thought they were doing the right, or not quite the right thing, but they thought they were doing something which didn't break the rules, they thought they were within the boundary or outside of the boundary of what was understood to be salary, that nobody can be surprised when you're pushing right to the edges of the rules, that when you step or somebody is found that you're stepping over them and you get punished. So yeah, I think it's one of the problems with rugby in that it's quite a small world.
Yeah.
And you can't be these commentators, etc., can't be too harsh on Saracens, because they're a key part. Like, you can't just condemn Saracens and all they stand for, because
I don't want them to be condemned.
The England squad, etc. But
just don't pity me and say, oh, we should be impressed. Like, of course we should. Of course they've won 9 times in a row against Irish. Because right.
Anyway, never mind.
Move on. Just before we go into the last game, because it was by far the best game of the weekend, because it's what Premiership Rugby is about, when you've got 2 really good teams going against each other. 2 things I did want to say very quickly, just to break up from that, is great. Congratulations to Sarah Cox, who was the first female assistant in the Premiership. Far too long. In my opinion, they should have given this a long time ago, but great job on her. And also, before I forget, because I might forget it in the Super Rugby, I think her name was Lucy. Lucy, I think she refereed the Brumbies Force game.
Yes,
Absolutely.
first female referee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was absolutely
excellent.
fantastic. Borderline sexist comments from the commentators.
Really,
Yeah, it was a bit. They were kind of a bit like, not. I don't know. I'm not going to accuse anyone of being sexist, but
a bit patronising, maybe.
yeah, they're definitely patronising. But she was absolutely fantastic. So
Good.
more of that, please. And also, I believe I hope I do get this right, because I think it was Emily Scarrett who was on commentary on a few games this weekend. Absolutely fantastic. I thought
Yeah.
she was absolutely fantastic. Brilliant insight into the game. So again, keep them coming as well, because it was quite nice, because I was sat with my wife, and Charlotte said to me, "Oh, it's really nice to have a female commentator." And obviously, Charlotte's not massive onto her rugby, but that will do massive things. When you've got to have a bit, we live in a world where we've got to have equality on that sort of stuff. Emily Scarrett can also offer more insight than some of the other ex-pros, because she's still playing. She's one of the best players in the world. I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And it's something that you see in a lot of sports where, and obviously the genesis of this is a little bit unfortunate, but in order for some of these female, and in some other sports, non-white commentators, in order for them to get these jobs, they have to be pretty exceptional, because it's quite an old boys club. I know BT are very good for this, but some other broadcasters are not.
Yeah.
Or rather, the production company which does the rugby for BT are very good for this.
Yes.
I know they do a couple of other sports very well. Anyway, it does tend to be the case that if these commentators who are the first X are very, very, very good, because they just put more work in than the people who get these jobs because that's what they thought they were entitled to. And it's not only, as you say, is it something that we should be doing as a matter of course, because of their value is exactly the same as it would be if they were male, but
if not in some cases, if not more.
In a lot of cases, they are just better because they've worked harder.
Yeah.
And have more interesting things to say. So certainly Alex Scott is the example I'm thinking of in the football.
Yeah.
Who's been the highlight of the restart with her inputs. And yeah, I think there's absolutely no downside to these things. So they should have been happening earlier, but it's one of those things. Onto this match then. I think
that we don't want to spend too much longer on it, but go on.
No.
What's the point of view? Wasps are looking the real deal at the moment, though, considering they lost a lot of players. Sopawanga, Young, Tommy Taylor. That's a real shame for him.
Yeah. Here, I'll go through them. Yeah. So, 3rd minute, Thomas Young. This is appalling, and I suspect when Wayne Barnes watches it back, he might be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
For all the respect I have for him, both as a referee and as a barrister, he this didn't sit super well with me, because it was very clear contact to the head with force, no control with the shoulder. If it had been a tackle, they would that's 2 red cards.
Yeah.
But because it was a ruck, because it happened very quickly, because it was the 3rd minute of the game, maybe they didn't really dwell on it. And well, we'll see what the citing commissioner says, but I wouldn't be surprised if something came out of that, because it was pretty nasty looking. And it's the kind of thing that, for all this focus on the tackle area, the ruck is still very dangerous, and there's a lot happening, a lot of big boys coming in very fast, out of control, and that kind of thing is going to happen more and more often, or feel like it's happening more and more often as the tackle becomes safer, but the ruck is just left as a wild west, as Ben Ryan would call it, or does call it rather. Then, so 23rd minute, Sopoaga, I'm not really sure what he
Fine.
did.
They were walking. They showed the clip earlier. Tommy Taylor was in a boot, which doesn't look great, but he was walking fine. So I don't know what
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. Then Tommy Taylor, 25th minute, really, really unfortunate sprained ankle.
Yeah.
Just hit by a loose boot as somebody was sliding out in front of him. There's a point at which bad luck becomes something more, but this was sheerly bad, completely bad luck. Then I think the next injury was Gabby O'Gray, who'd just come on for Tommy Taylor, 33rd minute. Very probably looks like quite a bad concussion for O'Gray, which is not ideal. A very well refereed moment there where Wayne Barnes takes the time to obviously asks the Wasps manager if they have a player who's experienced enough to play hooker safely, but then also chooses to go and ask
Tom West
if he personally is actually happy with doing this. And at first he's not sure what to say because he's not quite sure what to do, because his manager has just told the referee that he should be playing, and he does. You can see on the video that he's asking.
He's looking at Launchbury, isn't he? I think he's looking at Launchbury, isn't he?
I think he's asking Launchbury what he'd like him to say, but Barnes is very like, no, I want your answer.
Brilliant.
And in the end, I don't think it would be too far to say that Tom West might have won Wasps the match by sticking up for himself there, because
100%.
That could have got very ugly given how strong Bath's scrum is, but leaving Wasps pack to be so, just let the scrums be uncontested. All of that whole Wasps pack was then fresh to be as good in the loose as they possibly can be, and it takes away Bath's main weapon, which we all, as we all expected, their scrum is one of the main drivers of their dominance. Winning scrum penalty, kick to the corner, score a try with the maul is what Bath would like to do all day, every day. And taking that away from them, it sort of exposed where they're a bit lacking, actually. I don't know.
A bit of creativity, aren't they, Bath?
It was quite sort of symbolised by there was one really neat play. I think it was off a line out. Bath attacking in Wasps half, line out sort of on the 22. Couple of nice phases, some good dummy lines run by the forwards. Priestland ends up with it. He's got backs outside him. He's got defenders fixed in front of him. And for whatever reason, maybe in my viewing of it, I didn't see an obvious defender, but it looks like a very clear chance where, as a Premiership, as an international 10, you just pick out one of those guys outside you and follow the ball, basically. But there was an enormous overlap. You've just got to get the ball out there however you possibly can. And Priestland he tries to look, and then he just runs back straight into traffic. And it was quite... He's very good. He's one of the highest point scorers in the Premiership this season. I think he's third in the overall table, and he has been very good for them. But there's probably a ceiling on what Bath can achieve while he's their 10 at the moment.
Like, can Matavesi do something better? Like, not saying Matavesi at 10, not at all, but can Matavesi be a bit more creative? Because if you look at flip side, look at Wasps.
Yeah.
Like, Jacob Amunga is playing for so much freedom. He just does not look phased whatsoever. You've got Sopoanga's company sitting behind him. Gopper didn't really need to be on the pitch. He was absolutely fine to come on. And then you've got people like Minotti who create things. They obviously, Kibarigi's electric. I don't want to single him out, but is Roy McConaughey any good? Is he the best?
Good question. I've got another question for you about a Bath back three player, which is a bit controversial. McConaughey, I don't really know. He's obviously very big and very fast, but he's not an awful amount more than that.
What, McConaughey?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't. He was given the go for England after like not many games where it's not like he was scoring like ridiculous tries. Like Kibarigi has scored some outrageous tries. Like he's gone to Argent now. Who is it? The Quins winger. Yeah, ridiculous for scoring ridiculous tries. Even like O'Flaherty, Woodburn. I'm not saying God, no, I'm not saying any of those players for England, but they were a bit more like, oh, they've scored some decent tries. But McConaughey's like, yes, he's tall and he is clearly quick, but I'm looking at him like he's not X Factor though, is he?
Not really. He's very good under the high ball.
Yes.
And very aggressive and very accurate under the high ball, and nearly scored a try off that. Just a bit unlucky for it today.
Who are you going to say someone else with that wasn't?
I don't think Anthony Watson is as good as he was.
That's the snippet for you, Joe. Use that. That'll get the nation talking.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of times today, one of them one-on-one with Marcus, and a couple of other times where maybe I expect miracles from Anthony Watson because I've seen him perform miracles.
You should do though.
Many, many times in the past. But there were just a couple of times where I thought that he would do a bit more, or certainly be able to beat a man one-on-one with the amount of space that he had. Now maybe the decision making to not try to do that and to keep possession was the correct thing to do, but 80 minutes of what was a quite loose game, and he's ended up with a stat line of one defender beaten, one clean break, and played 80 minutes, is meant to be fully fit. Obviously his team weren't playing that well, but
he still gets the ball quite, isn't it? But going back to Johnny May. Johnny May creates things out of absolutely nothing. Like he just he runs sideways. And what the hell is he going to do? And sometimes he gets hit, but most of the time he doesn't. But in that game where Wasps were admittedly coming back and Bath admittedly probably like when you consider that they didn't have a hooker for the majority of the game, I don't know
with three
Bath haven't won that game, but. You needed him and Joseph needed to pull that by the scruff of the neck. He's just come back into my head. I have to mention him. Flipping heck, Fekatoa has arrived.
Yeah, he had one of his best games since coming back.
Who did he kill? Oh, that was it. He killed Watson, didn't he? Watson went down the wing off the Joseph lovely offload that who gets done? I can't remember who gets done. Adam Mills gets a bit done by him. But he just absolutely killed him, and then he put Sandin on his backside as well.
Yeah, and I think it was something that we'd forgotten when Fekatoa came over, that everyone was expecting him to be effectively what Randrada is. But as good as he is in attack, Fekatoa, and he is very good in attack, you don't play 13 for the All Blacks if you can't defend.
Well, they won the Super Rugby title with the Highlanders, didn't they?
Exactly. So getting him consistently playing sort of gelled and sort of cohesive with the players around him, he's only getting better, which is really, really, really nice to see as a Wasps fan.
Any more on that? Jack Willis was unbelievable again. He's got the best
all
of the world getting over the ball. Absolutely love watching him get over the ball.
Yeah. Really credit to the whole Wasps pack, such as it survived past half time. Doing really well. Gaskell and Rowlands both having quietly good games. And then Joe Launchbury tackling, is it Phil de Glanville into next week. He hit him so hard that his legs kept moving and his body and his upper body went backwards and his legs were still going forwards.
Oh,
that is honestly, as a second row, that is what you.
Week. Tom de Glanville, he got battered. Who fell on him in the Northampton game when he went in the corner? Can't remember. I think he got luckily he's been playing, to be honest.
Horrible follow up. Yeah. that I think those people might not necessarily remember this incident, but those incidents where the try is scored or being scored and the defender slides in knee first, elbow first, shoulder first to try, like, quote unquote, try to stop them in the act of scoring. And all that ends up happening is that this defenseless player just gets battered.
So Caleb Clark was
So,
for Blues.
yeah, well, yeah, Caleb.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't him. It was that was Caleb Clark on.
Clark did it once.
Oh, it was the Chiefs. Alaloa.
Yeah, broke his shoulder. Yeah, so I think that's one of the next things to be legislated out of the game. You'd hope,
100%.
maybe, if you never know. But yeah, it's not great to see. And yeah, Brad Shields having another very good game. Not maybe not England level, but solid and nice to see.
Yeah. What I'd say, I think, because we want to try and move it on to the top 14 in a minute, we can talk about is Wasp. As I say, Wasp are more of a complete side. Bath are still good, and they'll be in the rack. They just need maybe a couple of their internationals to spark something, and they're well in it. But Wasps maybe wanted it more, and they played better rugby, and that's sometimes, simple as it is, that's how they win games. Just very quickly, because we'll wrap up with some top 14 stuff as it's returning this Friday. Super Rugby AU, just very quickly. Brumbies beat the Force, so the final's going to be at GIO Stadium in a couple of weeks, 31-14. Not really anything to write home about. Tom Banks scored a nice try. That's it, really. Rebels, Waratahs. Waratahs winning, but Rebels crucially nicking Matt Tamua's decision to take a kick on the 76th minute was very, very important, because that gets them the losing bonus point, which means all they've got to do is beat the Force next week and they'll go through. But the Waratahs played really well. Michael Hooper's class, but we know that. Jack Dempsey's a player to watch at number 8 for the Waratahs. He's finally sort of decided to be very, very good. And a big shout out to the front row for Harry Johnson-Holmes, who scored, but also was very good in the scrum. So he's another one to watch. Based on what the Force were doing against the Brumbies, they started well against the Brumbies. I could see the Rebels going through them, to be honest, unless they suddenly turn it on. So, but yeah, I've been very, very impressed with Super Rugby AU. I really like it as a competition, and I've said this before. I would like the Australians to continue with this, because this is where they're getting the most competitive rugby. Week in, week out, it provides opportunity for the top brass in Australia to look at the best players going against each other in those positions. In a country where rugby union is 6th favourite, they need crowds for a short, condensed season, maybe, where they get good games. And the games have been good. Are they good as Super Rugby Aotearoa? No, because New Zealand as a whole is a better entity than Australia. But they have been the most competitive they have been for years in Super Rugby.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's one of the problems that the fans there don't, despite the wider super competition having existed for a pretty long time now, obviously the 25th anniversary of it this year, because the geography is so huge, they haven't built up rivalries with the teams outside of their countries.
No.
So, like, there's despite having plenty of really competitive games over the years, there's not really a competition between the Stormers and the Brumbies, despite having that period of time in the late 2000s decade where both of those teams were really good. Or Blues Reds from pre-2000, that like those rivalries haven't survived like they would in, or like they have in a more local competition. So anything they can do to stoke up a bit of heat in these matches is absolutely vital.
Yeah, 100%. I think you don't need. It would be a shame if Super Rugby did finish, but that's a conversation, as we keep saying, is for another podcast, and we will eventually do that podcast. But for me, my opinion on it is that it needs to be Super Rugby AU on the way, and we'll move it on. Very very quickly on the Pro 14. Again, rivalries. They were close last week, but in the end, very comfortable wins across the board. Benetton won, Cardiff won. Glasgow avenged defeat last week, beat Edinburgh, which is probably the closest game of the weekend. Leinster beat Ulster quite comfortably. Munster destroyed Connacht, which was when I looked on it before the highlights, I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. But Connacht had 2 red cards.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, did you see them?
No, I haven't yet. I just saw that I was watching
Go check and watch them. So the first one is a high shot, clear shoulder to the face by I can't remember who it is. Clear shoulder to the face. The other one was just a dumb. Like I think it's the hooker that's carrying it in. But he's carried the ball in with his elbow up, so he's hit him in the face. And I'm like, you've just had 1 red card. You've now snookered your team again. So yeah, that was why the scoreline was that high. And then Scarlets comfortably beat the Dragons. But yeah, Pro 14, not really anything to really talk about at the moment. They're just sort of going through the motions. We'll probably talk a bit more about that when we get to the playoffs. But the good thing is for us is the top 14 is back. And if you've seen our post, we obviously are, all 4 of us, our joint matrimony, as it were, is that we support our beloved Bordeaux Beglars, who have obviously signed they've signed Ben Lam. They've also signed the big Ben himself, Ben Tafanua, who I'm so excited to see in that lovely maroon kit. Any other top 14 signings you're very excited about?
Obviously, Guido Petty as well at Bordeaux. Really exciting 25-year-old second row. He's been a star for the Jaguares in Super Rugby, and obviously with that exodus, it's nice that he's landed at Bordeaux. We've already briefly touched on Ibitoye at Agen. Mm-hmm. I'm just having a browse down the list.
Matsushima is probably the one that most people have seen. Obviously went to Clermont. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on, but very, very excited to see him.
Yeah. Similarly at Clermont, actually, there's, not sure if you've picked up on this, but Taviti Veridamu, who is a Fijian guy. He's 30. He left Fiji when he was 18 to join the French Foreign Legion, and I believe played sevens for the Foreign Legion team, has been playing sevens for France, sevens for a year or so, and now has been picked up and played in the same preseason game that Matsushima made his first appearance in. So that's a really good story. Obviously, there are no end of Fijian guys who sort of in their late 20s, 30s who finally get the recognition that they deserve and turn up in one of these clubs. Obviously, Ratu Lago is the equivalent in Bristol, having played league for a couple of years. But yeah, hope he does well. And actually, Penny Ravai as well, who's moved from Bordeaux to Clermont, is a good prop and has been very good for.
Good pickup for them.
Very good for Fiji.
I was just going to say.
Will Skelton at La Rochelle.
Yeah,
Will Skelton moving to La Rochelle.
I like. There's just a quick few in there. Obviously, Tita Lamasetti was at Saracens. He's gone to Montpellier. Alex Lazowski, we talked about before, was at Montpellier on a season on loan. Kovac Reinaks at Montpellier. Beals obviously at Racing. We talked about this. Two that I really like is Matt Phillip is going to be playing for Powell, who's the Melbourne Rebels second row. He's been very good in Super Rugby AU, so he's one to watch if you're a fan of Powell. Richie Arnold's partnering up with his brother at Toulouse, which is terrifying because they're both over 6'8". They are ridiculous. Yes. But my sort of my favourite signing is Vincent Rattez. Has gone from La Rochelle to Montpellier, which I think is a fantastic pickup from Montpellier. He's very, very exciting. And then obviously Isaac Rodder's gone to Lyon, and the beast Bastereau is back at Lyon. He's very happy to be back, but he is horrifically overweight. I mean, he is just getting bigger and bigger as he gets older. But I'm excited for the top 14. Obviously, we're not going to be going into game by game every week or anything like that because we don't have the time, because we want to do. We have obviously said this podcast is about everything, but obviously we're going to have the access to watch the Premiership more. But we will be topping into Bordeaux, and we probably will go out and hopefully see them. So we might be able to do a podcast from France at some point. But yeah, Bordeaux, surely they were top of the top 14 last year before it ended. I'm backing them again.
I think they can certainly do very well. The acquisitions that they've made are helpful. It can be tempting for some of these teams to not really address the actual problems that they have, or focus on outside backs because they're more fun. But yeah, there's no team has ever got worse by spending more money on their second rows.
No.
Really?
No.
And getting Petty in can be really helpful. Tameifuna is a pretty versatile and very, very handy player at top 14 level, as we've seen. So yeah, I think it could be another good year for Bordeaux.
As long as Ben Lam doesn't do a Julian Sarvia, it could be, which I have a horrible feeling that may come back to bite. I don't know. I think Ben Lam's a very exciting player.
Let's have a look. Who's in there? Who's there to help him settle in? Obviously Ben. Obviously Tameifuna. I think one of the things that makes the biggest difference with these guys moving over is the atmosphere that they're going into.
Would have been a shame because obviously Semi's just left Bordeaux, which is obviously a shame for us, but Bristol's gained. But
yeah. So I think in terms of English speakers in the back line, Seta Tamanivalu was brilliant for the Crusaders and is also an outside back. So I suspect he'll be tasked with helping Lam settle in. Ben Bottika's still there at 10, and then they've got a few guys riddled through the pack. Obviously, Kane Douglas and Scott Higginbottom are still there.
Oh, really? That's good.
So I think there are enough obvious English speakers and enough Antipodean presence that they can get him in, and enough guys with exactly, and sort of good personalities to bring him into. So I think fingers crossed they can get the most out of him.
Should be exciting, right? We've got 3 minutes left, definitely, because we've been, as I say, we're having a lovely chat. What I want from you, Harry, is your player of the week and your worst lid of the week. We'll save the overall worst lids for next week when we get Joe and Johnny back. But anyone catching your eye, first of all, on the worst lid?
Can I have a joint? It's borderline between terrible, a plague, and go on, lads, express yourselves. But so many rugby players with frosted tips, as if it were 2004. Yeah. I saw Michael Le Bourgeois, who is, despite the name, a very, very rudimentary championship centre. I mean, not really. He's been very good in the Premiership, but he's not a superstar.
He's not a guy that needs to be dyeing his hair
reasonably like long. Yeah, no, he's just dyed it platinum blonde, hasn't he? Reece Priestland is amongst the best executed. In that it's very, very neat, the division between the dye and the non-dyed bit. Jono Ross's is quite good, sort of shark fin of.
He looks like a Bond villain. He looks great.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a henchman.
Yeah.
Jono Ross. So yeah, I think a lot of people saw Faf de Klerk and thought he looked great, and then forgot that Faf de Klerk's blonde locks are all natural and
Tiff
not
Eden,
great.
Tiff Eden's mine. I think we talked about this earlier, mate. If you can have a Premiership debut, start at 10, get your haircut sorted, lad.
So that's the thing. These guys can have whatever haircut they like.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it, because they're not working in an office and their presentation isn't important to their job unless you're Maro Itoje and you're an ambassador for
Exactly.
Adidas.
Yeah.
But in their squad pictures, so the classic stand up straight, fold your arms, a mullet is perfect because you look very, very tidy directly from the front, and then you can do whatever you like behind your head. So mullets are great for rugby players because of that. The problem is when you're Tiff Eden and you're not going to have a very stellar rugby career, but
Oh,
what he is going to do is go into financial services afterwards. And I don't think it's very wise for everybody's first impression of you as Mr. Tiff Eden. Your first impression to be a curly mullet.
oh, it's
Uh,
mad. Bless him.
but yeah, it's I'm really glad that these players are
Yeah,
doing it
fair play.
because it's very funny.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure it's something that they'll look back on when they're retired. And he's got the video of his first Premiership start, and his grandkids are asking,
Have you got that?
What happened there?"
What happened to Grandad?
Yeah,
Player of the week.
hilarious. Player of the week. Bit of a rogue one, turning back the years. I think Mike Brown.
Oh,
Not
I
seen a
like that.
performance. Yeah, not seen a performance as complete as that for a very long time. Showing he actually does pass sometimes for Nathan Earl's try. And yeah, no, I think it's sort of easy to forget about some of these guys once England drop them, once they're no longer quite at that level. But there's still some tread on those tyres. Played really well.
Yeah, he really impressed me. Obviously, up there is Johnny Hill will have to be obviously up there for a hat trick. You don't just do a hat trick from the second row if you're not in the right area. But he played really well. Sam Simmons again with a hat trick. But for me, I've talked about him before. Maro Itoje is my player of the week for just impact. Just he won them that game. It's simple as that. Like it didn't click for Saracens today. Yes, they've won 40 points to 12, as I've said. Yes, they've got a bonus point, but they can't look at the back of that and go, well done, lads, we played really, really well, because I don't think they did, to be honest. It just didn't click for them. But Maro was unbelievable. Just turnovers, line-out wins, and then some unbelievable carries and offloads. Best second row in the world. Yeah, player of the week for me.
Good.
We'll be back next weekend with obviously the top 14. Hopefully our beloved Bordeaux have won on Friday night against Stade Français. I think they will. And we've got a packed weekend of ruggers. We've got obviously it was the battle of Harry and Johnny this weekend. It's the battle of Joe and Johnny as Irish versus Gloucester. So that was hopefully going to lives up to a bit of better as it is. But yeah, thanks again for all those that have joined us on social media and stuff. Keep giving us a follow, keep giving us a like, keep giving us a share. For those that like listening to blokes talk about ruggers. See you, mate. Have a nice week.
See ya.